So you've probably all heard the news that Feral Druid is nuts, Feral Druid is insane, everybody's looking to play it.
Dude, Feral AoE is real as fuck.
I can't focus at interrupting. Interrupting.
If you ever miss a DPS, you can also invite the Feral Druid. They're really good. They do damage. So that proves the point. It doesn't matter what class you are. What matters is how good you are as a player.
No? Okay, well maybe you just want to dick around with some friends and play some Druid, huh? Well, in this video today, I'm going to be giving you a full Mythic plus Feral Druid guide in a basic overview. But make sure you look out for the next one, because that's going to be a more advanced, in-depth guide. In terms of talents, you either can go for Predator or for Sabertooth. Predator is really strong in Mythic Plus scenarios because you can get regular resets whenever a mob dies with one of your bleeds on them. This will increase your critical strike if you're using Jungle Fury, it will increase your damage by 15%, and it will also help with your energy issues, which is a massive thing that Feral Druid suffers with. Sabertooth is really good, however, because it will increase your single target damage on a priority target and allow you to get more ferocious bites. When it comes to the level 30, 45, and 60 talent rows, these are all personal preference, so I would implore you to play around with these and figure out what works for you the best. When it comes to the level 75 talent row, Soul of the Forest is the only viable option, currently. Though Brutal Slash will increase your single target damage very slightly, ultimately in Mythic Plus, Primal Wrath is just too good to lose, as that AoE rip that it applies is just so powerful. The final row of talents is once again a personal choice, as both Moment of Clarity and Blood talents do very similar overall damage, though their playstyles are very different and will require you to gain different gear and stats as a result. I personally have started playing a lot of Moment of Clarity, as it means that I've been able to deal with some of these emissaries with little to no impact on my overall DPS, though I find Blood talents allows you to control where you want your DPS to be centered, as you are able to empower either your single target or your AoE abilities dependent on what the fight requires, whereas with Moment of Clarity you rely heavily on your shred and swipe damage. Ultimately, Blood Talents is the more difficult talent to play with, as it requires more micromanaging. Talking stat weights then, if you're playing a Moment of Clarity build, I would definitely emphasize going very heavy on your crit strike, as most of your damage comes from shred and swipe. For me, shreds can hit as high as 50k, which is about half the damage of a ferocious bite. Now, some of that is also attributed to the essence trait, which I will get into in a little bit. You might then think that versatility would be the next best thing. However, with Primal Wrath, most of your damage does still come from Rip and the initial hit damage of Primal Wrath. Therefore, your mastery scales very well. Haste and Verse you can gain passively via your Azerite essences, so Memory of Lucid and Conflict and Strife will give you passive versatility, and Blood of the Enemy or Focusing Iris offers you passive haste gains. When playing Blood Talents, I prefer dropping crit for mastery, as most of the time you are empowering your bleeds or your finishes, which scale off of your mastery. Depending on the weekly affixes, you will most likely change your essences around. On a fortified week, Focusing Iris is a very strong choice for direct add damage, though I personally dislike it, as oftentimes you will end up energy capping during the duration of the beam, and it prevents you from using any abilities. Therefore, I personally choose Blood of the Enemy, as it syncs well with our Trinkets, and it can be used on any mob count from a single target fight to mass AoE. Now, simulations might suggest Conflict and Strife, which gives you Thorns, as being a very strong choice for Feral. However, this requires you to play around many factors. Is your tank about to kite? Are the mobs about to be AoE stunned? Is your tank a certain spec, say Brewmaster, which has a high dodge chance? On a skittish week, however, you might still find this to be a solid choice. In terms of minor traits, Memory of Lucid offers us energy regeneration, a passive heal, and versatility. You can't really ask for more than that. I love Purification on Fort Week, as it can do a passive 5% damage and benefits from mobs staying alive so long. On Tyrannical Week, Blood of the Enemy remains a strong choice, as it still offers that single target damage increase as well as helping out on the trash. If you're only worried about pure single target, however, then I would suggest Condensed Life Force being a contender for Blood of the Enemy, though it won't offer much in the way of AoE damage, so keep that in mind. I listed Crucible here just in case you don't PvP and you don't raid. You can still take Crucible, which will offer some decent single target from the options you have left. For minors, I would suggest swapping out Purification for Conflict, which will give a very high uptime passive versatility, though I most of the time will still play Purification on Tyrannical Week, as the trash is still important to kill, especially on the higher level keys, where it just has so much goddamn health. Azerite is quite simple, aim for 3 times Wild Flesh Rending, especially if you are talented into Moment of Clarity. It's basically mandatory. Jungle Fury is also really good in conjunction with Sabertooth or Predator, though benefits more from a Predator build. Gushing is great to complement your Primal Wrath and Rip damage for AoE, or even for single target. If you run 3 Jungle Furies, you can exchange one for a Blighted Infusion if you feel like it, which overall will provide more critical strike. However, you can't guarantee that the Blighted Infusion is going to proc when you need it. You can also take a Blood Mist, though this will only really benefit your single target and not your AoE. Some people do also take an Untamed Ferocity, which I haven't listed here, though I personally am not a huge fan of that. From the tier 3 list, any of these are great to choose from. It just comes down to whatever you can grab. I've compiled a list of a couple of trinkets you can aim to find. The way to use Inkpot and Coral in conjunction with one another is to wait until the boss gets to about 33% health. Sit there with your 5 combo points stacked. Then you can proc your Coral stacks, which have been stacking up on the boss over the course of the fight. Use your Tiger's Fury and Blood of the Enemy on 31% health, and then you would max combo point Ferocious Bite into a near enough guaranteed critical hit of Blood of the Enemy, and then your Ferocious Bite and your Ink Pod Trinket, which all benefit from the 25% increased critical hit damage of Blood of the Enemy, which ends up being really powerful. Notable mentions are Harland and Deadeye Spyglass if you don't raid, or even if you do but you don't want to be pestered with that upkeep and mechanical play of using the on-use trinkets. For any 15 key or lower, I prefer to use Cyclotronic Trinket, the one from the Mechagon dailies, instead of Coral, as these bosses die quicker, and Cyclotronic benefits from Blood of the Enemy in a similar fashion. Also, it can be some very nice single target prio damage. Now that you've got your character set up, let's talk rotations. As a rule of thumb, you always want to stealth before combat, and if you can, retain 5 combo points before leaving combat. That way when you then start up combat again, you've already got your finisher available. If you play Blood Talons, ensure you regrowth before going into stealth. Once stealth, you would pre-pot, Berserk, then Tiger's Fury, and you open with a Rake. If you have the Sabertooth talent, then you would immediately follow the Rake up with a Rip. If not, let's say you're playing Predator, then you would just Rake and immediately Thrash and build to 5 combo points with Shred. Then you would Rip. After that, you Shred until 5 combo points and then Ferocious Bite. But only when you have more than 50 energy. Never Ferocious Bite with under 50 energy. If you're playing Sabertooth, your Ferocious Bites will automatically refresh your Rip. So you only need to ensure that you refresh your Rake when it has 3 seconds left. If you're playing Predator, then you should refresh your Rip when it has 8 seconds left. Tiger's Fury on cooldown, and make sure that you don't Berserk unless you have Tiger's Fury available. Now Thrash doesn't hit very hard at all, so you only need to refresh your Thrash if your next ability is going to be a Shred. Assuming you're running Blood of the Enemy, I would wait until you've got your Rip up on the target, and then build 5 combo points, and immediately Blood of the Enemy into a Ferocious Bite. For 2 to 3 target cleave, I regularly do the following. Starting from Stealth, all the same, I would Berserk Tiger's Fury into a Rake. I would then immediately Primal Wrath. Then I would Rake the remainder of the targets available, and then you Thrash. Then you begin swiping to 5 combo points, and then you would Ferocious Bite. Then you keep swiping to 5 combo points and alternate between a Primal Wrath, then swiping into a Ferocious Bite, then swiping into Primal Wrath, and back and forth and back and forth. Make sure that you're maintaining your Rakes and your Thrash at all times on all targets. Now the reason I do this is because Primal Wrath has an immediate damage effect, plus it will apply Rip to all targets. And it means I can still cycle in Ferocious Bites as part of my rotation. As I play Predator, my Ferocious Bites don't refresh my Rip uptime anyway, and ultimately sometimes the easier option is the better one. By playing this method, it means that all targets immediately suffer from Rakes and Rips. Once you reach 4 or more targets, this is where I would stop Raking or Ferocious Biting. Instead, the rotation boils down to getting Thrash up on all targets and then swiping to 5 combo points, and using your Primal Wrath as your finisher. Technically, you can continue to Ferocious Bite on 4 targets, though I only do so if I have a priority target with a higher health pool than the surrounding mobs. Now, Berserk doesn't often add too much in the way of AoE damage, as you'll rarely be energy starved with this rotation, though it can help with priority damage if you're chaining Ferocious Bites into a priority target. So I would instead look to save your Berserk for bosses or any 1 to 3 target packs. Blood of the Enemy still definitely benefits from mass AoE. Now, a lot of people will tell you that Feral Druid has no utility, but that is because they are stupid and ignorant and they haven't even looked. Most people are unaware of the utility that we can bring to the table. I've listed all of the things that I can think of up on this page here for you to just peruse. And there's definitely some really cool things you can do with Feral to make yourself more valuable to the rest of your group. The reason I think a lot of people would say that Feral doesn't have utility is that anything that we can do, a rogue can do it, and anything that we can do that a rogue can't do, well, a Resto Druid can probably do it. And as most groups are compiled around having a Resto Druid and a rogue, it means that Feral Druid doesn't really bring anything additional to the table. However, with the changes coming in 8.3 and Mistweaver becoming a go-to healer, we could see that bringing a Feral Druid to your Mythic Plus groups could end up being a really strong possibility. I hope you all enjoyed this video today. As I said, it was quite a basic overview just to get you up and running with Feral Druid. I'm sure you have many questions and probably want more details. If I've omitted anything, it's because I didn't want to overcomplicate this first initial guide. Definitely look out for the next guide, which is going to be a more in-depth, advanced analysis of why we're doing the things that we're doing. You could also get into the comment section if you have any suggestions or anything you feel I missed or anything that you want more clarity on or more description on. As well, you can check out my stream, twitch.tv/cybeslat, where you can come and ask me these questions live and come and hang out and watch some Feral Druid gameplay live. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.